And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Power Hour podcast. I'm super excited today because we've got Andy Wingate here, Business Central expert, and we just discussed off air that I'm a Business Central noob. So, Andy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here with you.
Pleasure is all mine. So, Andy, for people who are coming in from the Power Platform side who might not be familiar with ERP, funny story actually. I was at the MVP Summit and I looked at my agenda. And I walked into the wrong room, and it was like the director of ERP from Microsoft or something that was in there. And it was such a niche because it was like the director of ERP. I think he handled like pretty much Business Central and some of the other stuff that came with it. And the room was so small. Like there wasn't that many people in there. So I think it's fair to say it's a bit of a niche, right?
Depends. I mean, I don't know what the revenue stats are, but every business needs a finance system, and sort of at the core of ERP stands for enterprise resource planning, and there's a big history of how we got to that, which I won't bore you with, but every business needs a finance system. It's like without revenue you can't have all the exciting other stuff, right? I don't want to detract from the importance of CRM. Of course, you've got to keep your customers happy too, right? Yeah, I think like often D365 people say to me like, "Oh, Andy, Business Central's so niche and all this sort of stuff," and it's kind of like I think it's the exposure to it is maybe the ERP people need to get out and party more often. I don't know, but I'm leading the charge on that change of direction.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, there's some pretty good like come along to the Directions conference or some of the other really great like big conferences like Dynamics Minds. They've got the ERP tracks. You've got BC and F&O talks, and I'd say it's probably less niche than you imagine.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. I mean, it's always good to kind of understand that, and I mean, yeah, for someone who's looking in from the outside, I suppose that could be how it seems. But when you put it that way, like everyone needs a system to manage their resources, manage their money, of course, because without that, the business doesn't tick. So for people who might not be familiar with Business Central, like how would you describe it?
Yeah. Okay. So Business Central, it's part of the Dynamics 365 sort of family business applications. It's an ERP. It's effectively an all-in-one business system. So you are able to manage your ledgers. In finance they have these ledgers, these kind of like they're tables of data that you can only ever write to. So if you want to write in a sale, it goes in. If you credit that person, you don't kind of delete the sale. You write a credit in with a negative value or an opposite value. So it's filled up with lots of ledgers. The main one being the general ledger. It's sort of the central control point. But it also then connects together all the other operations of the business. So you've got your sales, you've got your purchasing, you've got your inventory, warehouse operations, and then you start to throw on top of that fixed assets, manufacturing, and then service, and all the other areas that the business might need to operate. And it brings it, and traditionally, what ERPs do is that they bring that single version of the truth for the business, so that the business can. And a business and Business Central is the same, right? And the most important thing that a business needs is to be able to respond to one of the really important things it needs to be able to do is to respond to change. And you need to be able to understand your performance. Like if you want to improve as a business, you need to measure, right? And you need to measure your performance, and you need to have that single version of the truth. And you need teams working together, not siloed. So this is what ERPs bring together. And Business Central sits in that, has all that functionality. And it's the offering from Microsoft that's designed for small, medium companies, although like medium can be pretty big these days. The other sort of sibling, the bigger brother, if you like, of Business Central is F&O, Finance and Operations, and that traditionally was more kind of your enterprise scale, and that's certainly the same today. We say there's a very broad rule, is like rule of thirds, F&O has got 3 times the number of features. The projects take three times as much time. Consultants get paid 3 times more. No, I'm just kidding about the last one, right? But with Business Central, it's designed to be a little bit more smaller, lighter, easier to implement versus F&O. But some of the things that might have made people how do you decide between the two? Actually, we just put out a comparison thing on LinkedIn. But some businesses are not sure which one is right for them, and Microsoft has with all of the Dynamics suite. You get those release waves, you get those updates twice a year, and they've really pumped a huge amount of investment into Business Central. It feels, sitting on the Business Central camp, it really feels like it's a poster child for Microsoft. I don't know how, it'd be interesting to know your thoughts on that from outside. Have you seen a little bit more buzz about Business Central recently?
Absolutely. Yeah, in my projects, definitely. As someone who contracts, absolutely. And even when you look at the market, and honestly, which is why I think this is such a great time to do the podcast, and there's just so much more buzz around Business Central than I've seen, at least in the early days of my career. Because when I came in, it was, Dataverse and Power Apps, and everyone's getting super excited. But now I feel like, I think you can tell I haven't been in this space for super long, but now I feel like the buzz is coming back from Business Central. It might have had something to do with COVID as well, coming in during that time, and then that pausing things.
Great digital transformer, right? Like suddenly people realised running their finance system on a computer at the office was a bit of a nightmare. All of a sudden, we need to work from home, right?
Yeah.
So let's get a cloud solution. Microsoft's, you're making a safe bet with Microsoft. They've got the security sorted. They've got the compliance sorted. You're already using Power BI, or you're already using Teams, or you're obviously already using Excel. In finance, everyone uses Excel, right? So because it all connects so easily, it just became such a sensible choice for so many businesses to make, and it's really they keep telling us about the customer numbers that Business Central's got. I think we're up to 45,000 now. Not too long ago it was 40,000, and the other companies out there, the competitors, you don't really hear those stats. I think so. Microsoft, they're really proud of these stats, and it's growing at a quite a colossal rate.
Yeah, and Andy, my question. I have a question. I have a couple questions, actually. Let me start with one, dialing it back. You said you've done some sort of a comparison chart. Maybe you put it on LinkedIn or a blog somewhere, but a comparison chart of when someone should use Business Central in comparison to F&O. Was that the comparison you were speaking about?
Yeah,
yes.
So Venture, we put out a...
right.
We've got we use a tool. There's a company out there, CA365. We're partners of them, and they're great. They kind of do like requirements and qualifying and all those sorts of things. And one of the bits we use there is the comparison. When you speak to a business, tell us all about your requirements, and we've got a great long sort of formal survey that we go through, and then you can output what's the fit gap with Business Central, what's the fit gap with F&O. So you can really do a really good data-led approach on the decision. The comparison that the doc that went out recently was, it was kind of a short PDF. I think you can just download it and have a read of the general pros and cons. What are the general features these days between Business Central F&O? Because it has changed. In the past, F&O, if you wanted multiple countries, you'd probably choose F&O because it was more suited to that. Technically, it's just one database, and you've got the multiple countries all inside one database. Whereas with Business Central, a single database has got the localizations for one country, and then you needed another database. However, in BC now, it's very easy to have additional environments. You can link up the environments. As far as the user's concerned, they can flick between all the group companies with a few clicks. So that multi-country thing no longer becomes the deciding factor. There's ultimately, if you're a big organization, but you're doing relatively straightforward trading, and you don't have any super difficult requirements around procurement or recognizing revenue or some sort of really complicated thing, and Business Central can be a great fit for you, and it's so this Business Central is winning more of those multi-country type opportunities perhaps than F&O is.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the first conversations we had, and I think you saw my lack of knowledge for Business Central, because we spoke about how Business Central doesn't sit on Microsoft's Dataverse, which it seems like all of the Power Platform kind of runs through. So for someone who's coming in and listeners coming in from the Power Platform, what would you say about that? Because I'm sure you've been involved in projects where Dataverse is involved, and then of course you're using Business Central. I know you did a talk on Power Pages and integrating that somehow with Business Central as well in Color Cloud, which I didn't get to attend, but I heard was really great. So how was I guess my question is like, where does that overlap sit, and how does that impact your work?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a great question. Yeah, it's kind of like, why can't we just use Dataverse? Wouldn't it be the
Yeah.
obvious thing to do? And I think, there's no reason, technically, there's no reason why they couldn't move it across to Dataverse from a technical point of view, but it's a huge amount of time and money. And this kind of comes back to the other element of Business Central, which is Microsoft heavily invest in the platform. They invest horizontally, so they invest in features and tools that every business needs, or the vast majority of businesses need, and they invest in the service layer, so the performance and capabilities, that sort of thing. And they leave ISVs, so like the add-ons companies, to make those vertical solutions. And there are, I think, close to 6,000 ISVs available for Business Central. Some of them are been around since the days of Nav, others more recent. But there's a huge amount of software that you plug in onto BC. I always give the example when I'm talking to customers around BC and app source. Well, you get your iPhone and then you immediately install WhatsApp, right? The iPhone doesn't come with WhatsApp; it's an extra add-on that you add, and everyone's very used to that kind of concept. And Business Central is very similar. Almost it would be very rare to do a Business Central project and have no ISVs. There's some real common ones out there that kind of add a bit of functionality at a modest additional cost that you just don't get out of the box. So, having said all of that, why don't they just swap to Dataverse? So all of these, thousands of ISVs, they're all using that current database, the Business Central database schema.
Right.
So, like getting that, and they're very powerful. The ISVs, they've got a very strong voice with Microsoft because a lot of the success of Business Central, like the ISVs are there on their journey. They are riding shotgun on that success as well, because as Business Central grows, they're growing, and their capabilities and features. When it's any sort of independent business out there is comparing Business Central with any other competitive SaaS product, right? And the ISV is a key part of the solution, and it's kind of like it's that capability. So they're really important for that success too. So Microsoft, takes their opinions very seriously and considers their thoughts around updates, and I think that's that'll be interesting. I'd be interested to ask you this question. I've since joining the sort of the partner side and getting closer to Microsoft through the MVP program and all the rest of it, I've always been impressed with just how great like the Business Central product team are at listening to the voices out there. We've got like an ideas forum, but also like talking to the ISVs as well. They really value that feedback and information, and it genuinely has a big impact on the product roadmap. There's every single release there's out there with Business Central, that some of those features are like, and this was an idea that someone put in, and they named the person, and it's like this person put this in and people voted for it and we did it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And
So to answer your original question, Dataverse, yes, it's a separate database. So Business Central essentially has Azure SQL, some sort of highly available, highly protected, firewalled version of Azure SQL that sits behind the Business Central service. And to get but there's a number of ways that you can get your data into Dataverse. There's like out-of-the-box native connectors. We've got virtual tables now that you can use for Power Pages. So there's ways of connecting in, all of the other D365 apps and sharing that data or moving that data.
yeah, and not to get charged your billable rate here, but would you recommend that?
Well, that's how it works. Like if you want to run D365 sales, then you can turn on if you've got often you'll, in a simple deployment, turn on D365 sales, use the out-of-the-box connector, run your sales cycle, marketing, whatever, through that tool. And once an opportunity is closed, maybe is it going to create the contact and the customer inside BC, so you can start create the sales invoice there, or create it in D365. There's a number of options. So those are the tools that are available, right? So yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely a great way of doing it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And honestly, I would like to see more talks and presentations. Maybe I'm just missing out, but on these integrations between the ERP systems and Dataverse, and just understanding just how far you can take that. Because that Power Pages one was eye-opening, because I know you joined another session that I was in, because I was two similar ones, and it was kind of covering that topic as well, virtual tables, which was
there was a I think it was Raoul, did a
yes,
really great session, and he had linked up the creating of the contact and the issuing of the login. I mean, that was really beautiful. I really enjoyed that.
yeah, no, absolutely. I love that.
So, hold on,
Yeah,
you need to
please.
get along to a Business Central conference, because if you go to like the D365 conferences, they often aren't talking about integrating with BC, because it is a little bit niche in that conference.
Yeah, yeah,
But if you go to a
yeah.
BC conference, there's plenty of integrating with Copilot Studio or
Yes,
D365 apps or all this other kind of good stuff. So
absolutely.
along to directions.
Yeah, no,
That's the big one.
no, absolutely, and I definitely want to level up my BC game, which again was why I was so excited to speak to you on the podcast. I feel like I can ask you these questions without you getting annoyed at me because we have an excuse to do so. So, I mean, like, yeah, no, I definitely do want to see more of those conferences, and just for people listening, because I kind of wanted to make this episode a little bit for people who are currently using BC, people who have also never used BC before and are considering learning it. So I guess it's relative, but what is the benefit of learning Business Central for someone coming from the Power Platform? Let's say Power Apps, Dataverse, Power Automate, model-driven apps, CRM systems more so.
Yeah.
Would you categorize any of the benefits that they would get learning Business Central, in your opinion?
I think employability. There's a shortage of Business Central consultants, and what's really important, like you can learn the technology, right? That's ultimately, if we're in this space, we're good at picking up technology. We're all good at
Absolutely.
that. The thing is really for me crucial on a Business Central consultant is that ability to absorb and understand business processes. So when you're talking to the clients, it's that ability to translate, what all the different stakeholders are saying. And if you're coming from a technology point of view, from a sales point of view, that's absolutely valid. The other side of it is from a finance point of view. So if you're having that background in accounting is also extremely good if you want to get onto the consultancy side. But you don't need an accountancy background to become a Business Central consultant. There's always accountancy people in the mix. It is an important part of it, but my background is not accountancy. My background is IT, and I did a bit of I did an accountancy course, and I guess I worked as an end user and worked very closely with the finance team. So I kind of picked up various crucial parts, but I defer to others experts when it comes to the serious accountancy matters. I think sometimes there's a bit of a myth out there to work in ERP you need to be an accountant. You don't, absolutely not. It's that business process element of it. Those soft skills are incredibly important. When you're on any given project, I'm sure that's the same whether it's ERP, Business Central, or anything else. Those soft skills, listening to people, gathering requirements, managing expectations, helping people through the bumps in the road that every project inevitably has. Those are the things that make a successful project, whether it's Business Central or whether it's D365, Power Apps or whatever. So those are the things. So I'd say absolutely. And the other thing that's fantastic about Business Central is it's so easy to pick up, right?
Yeah.
You can go on to Microsoft Learn. There's a whole massive load of Microsoft Learn content dedicated to Business Central. You can spin up a trial very easily and just get hands-on. There's a demo company in there. There's videos of people going through the basic processes, sales, purchase, doing journals, doing some warehouse stuff, all that kind of good stuff. It's so easily, I'd say it's more accessible than trying to learn Power Apps and Power Platform. I've kind of come from the other side, right, where I've tried to get into some Power Automate stuff or some Power App stuff and kind of try to get the licenses or try to get the free version to just have a play around and learn it.
Yeah.
I found a little bit, I think I got there in the end, right? But it was a bit of a struggle, whereas with Business Central, you can just literally go sign up, free trial, bash, and you're in. And it says it only lasts 3 months, but I think it keeps going. It just keeps going.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. I think I had the same thing with AI Builder. I remember using it and I was just like, didn't they just tell me my trial was over a month ago and I'm still then they're just completely updating my credits.
I think in Business Central you can't do a production company, but a trial company, the test company. But if you just want to learn it, that's what you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Andy, I love the way you led with the softer skills there because I don't feel like it's talked about enough within the work we do, especially since, you're more in the partner space now. interacting with customers is so key. Them liking you, them be able to trust you, able to be honest with you is so important.
Trust, very
Yeah,
important.
trust is I'd say the most important when working with a customer. Knowing that you can deliver, knowing that you want the best for them. So I guess just to dig in a little bit into that, what can the people listening to this podcast do who, because I think there's a bit of a narrative around technical people, right? You know, lock themselves in a dark room and, you know, shut the windows and shut the lights and then they're just doing the work. But what would you recommend to those people who maybe notice that they could do a bit of leveling up in their soft skills? Where would you say they could start?
That's a great question. So, I mean, leveling up in the soft skills, that's a really great question. You know, because a lot of the go-to, like, here's a link for the technical thing, but in terms of leveling up for the soft skills, I think it depends on your situation. You know, if you are in a partner organisation, then have a word with your line manager, have a word with your people team. You know, tell them that this is an area that you want to develop and improve. And you know, or like wherever I've worked on the partner side, they've always really there's always been training available, and more common than not, it's like you're trying to get the budget used up on the training and to get people on courses, because normally the partners will kind of secure a big like economy of scale deal, and then they want to like make sure it's all utilized, right? So you know, get some actual formal training, and you know that for soft skills, I think. There is like an element of time on the grass and face-to-face things, and you know the kind of things I've done in the past. I suppose soft skill, yeah, like some like sales training. Is that a soft skill? Potentially, but it was the kind of the relationship management and the negotiations and the sorts of, you know, things that we did on that training thing. It was, you know, like the role playing, the scenarios, and actually talking it through and that stuff. It's kind of a little bit, if you're very technical and you're like wanna like just go crunching code on the keyboard, that kind of stuff is a little bit cringy. But you know, you just gotta push yourself out your comfort zone. Like like learning anything, right? Push yourself out the comfort zone. Everyone on a training session wants you to succeed 100%, right? And so it's a safe place to like fluff it up. It doesn't matter there. And then the next time you try it, you'll be better, and you'll be better, and you'll be better. And then when you're using it in the real world with a tricky customer, you know that's when you get that real benefit. So I think my go-to would be, you know, have a word with your organisation and get yourself on sort of an official training course.
Absolutely.
That's a great way to adopt face into that.
Yeah, I think it can really help. And I love the way you mentioned sales as well, because it's funny because some people say like, you know, I'm not in a sales role, but I think anything you do career-wise, I think it can always somewhat tie back to sales. Genuinely, I believe that. And even if it's just selling a customer on an idea that you truly believe in and you think would help them and you think it's better than maybe the idea they have, or you think it's more efficient to do it that way, that is a small-scale aspect of selling in our jobs as consultants and developers, and I think it's an important skill to have. And yeah, I appreciate you leading with soft skills. So on the technical side, you mentioned something I really liked as well, which was just to spin up an environment and get clicking, because that is the best way to learn. Stop watching videos. But if you had to give a roadmap, like, you know, this is certification A, or this is like step 1 and then this is step 2, like, do you have anything in mind for what people can do in relation to that? Yeah,
for sure. So, you know, aka.ms/bcdocs, you know, that's the short link to go to the Business Central docs page, and then there's a training section in there, and then you've got like the learning, like, and I when I'm talking to customers, I'm like, log in, make sure you log in on the learn site, because when you log in, it like tracks your progress, and you can pick the learning paths and the modules, just the standard Business Central training. And there's various like collections in there, you know, getting started with Business Central, or what area might interest you, sales or purchase. So you know, the basic learn docs from Microsoft, the training ones, that's a really good one to do. And the login element of it, if you do, you know, get involved in Business Central in a big way, it's super duper handy, because when they update the docs, you can go back to your with your learn login to the learning area, and all of the courses you thought you completed are now at like 95%, or not all of them, but like some of them are suddenly like, oh, why is this one at 95%?
Yeah.
And it's because it's added another chapter that you didn't do yet, so you can kind of narrow in on the stuff with those up, because that's a big challenge, right? Keeping up to date on all the stuff that's coming with the updates. So the Learn Docs is one really great resource. The next really great resource that I happily recommend to anyone who will listen is something called Use Dynamics. So if you just Google Use Dynamics, there's a website called Use Dynamics. It's from a company, I think it's a Danish company called Abakian, and they, as well as being a partner and doing their own thing, they've got a lot of, they're an ISV as well, they do their thing over in Denmark and I think globally, but they've also got this kind of like free area called Use Dynamics, and their videos there are some of the best explanations of some of the more technical stuff. Like they've got the basic training, but then they start getting into like the heavy technical stuff around posting groups and how all that works. And I won't bore you with all the details, but I think they've got the best explanation I've ever seen about how all different posting groups work. And if you're new to finance, and if you're new to Business Central, and you're like, configuring, like you'll come across posting groups, and you're like, what are these? What does it mean? Why have I got what's a general business posting group, and what's a VAT business posting group? What's a customer posting group? Why have I got all these stupid posting groups? What does it mean? And they kind of they lay it out and explain it in a really kind of visual way, which it helped me understand it back in the day. I think it's some beautiful resource, and it's got really good financial go live videos, which 100% explain and demystify that financial go live thing, which is, we haven't touched on that yet, but one of the things that often I get asked about is what in terms of project go lives, the fundamental difference with an ERP and why ERP people get a bit twitchy is because when you go live with an ERP system, right, you're carrying that the old system has got the current financial position from last month, and you've got to carry forward all those balances, and then all of the departments, all of them, all have to start using whatever operational modules you've set up, and it all has to post correctly into that financial position that you've carried forward from the old system. So unlike providing a capability to a business, like we're going to provide a new app and it's going to help that team work a bit better and do their role, you can kind of, it feels like you can do those ones, you can kind of roll them out in a more gradual way, possibly, depending on the app, the project, right? But with the financial go live on an ERP, you've got that, you've got that those financial ledgers, those financial positions, and if you get that wrong, the auditors are on your case, and so that's a really key thing. So so in terms of the learning, aka.ms/BC Docs, and check out the training, and then just Google Use Dynamics. Those are two fantastic resources.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think a lot of people listening are going to get value out of that, because obviously they've probably heard of the Microsoft Learn stuff, but they haven't heard of the other, and neither have I. I mean, I think it just helps just to understand, getting the perspective from someone who is very well versed in the space where they can get started. Andy,
sorry, one last one.
Oh no, please go ahead.
On the training, I'll just give one. Well, to have a look at my blog, it's there. But off the top of my head, the other great source is LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
So if you go onto LinkedIn, just search Business Central or M365. No, DYN MS DYN 365BC is the hashtag that most people use for BC. And there's some great bloggers out there. There's a guy called Yun Zhu, who is the most prolific LinkedIn poster, I think, for Business Central by a country mile. And there's a number of other fantastic, there's the Microsoft guys, so Kenny, Soren, these are Microsoft product people, Jesper. These guys post short informational things. They do videos. That's another great source. And through LinkedIn, you'll also come across the Business Central YouTube channel. There's from Microsoft Business Central YouTube channel, which is pretty cool as well. It's got all the launch event videos. I mean, there's far more content than you can ever manage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Which is a problem sometimes.
Yeah, it is kind of a problem sometimes, and I think we're in a place where we've got so much content, it's more than we can consume in a lifetime. But I think just keeping up with those channels like LinkedIn for the updates, I think it's great. Knowing when something's come out, everyone's talking about these generative pages and Power Apps right now, for example. And
yes, I saw that.
yeah, you can't get away from it, right? And I think it would, I would know about it because I'm a big nerd. But if I was someone someone just dabbling into the stuff, I probably wouldn't have known about it without LinkedIn.
I think I maybe looked at LinkedIn not much today, like maybe 5 minutes, and I saw someone had posted. I can't remember who it was now, but that was like at the top of my feed. The generative.
It always is. It always is. Do you know what I have, Andy? LinkedIn. Like I like to go on LinkedIn and engage and like reply to comments and stuff, but I get stuck doom scrolling. This is a bit off topic, by the way. It's going to come up with something practical though. There is a Google Chrome extension and a Microsoft Edge extension called the LinkedIn Eradicator or something like that, and if you activate it, it deactivates your home feed. So you can activate your messages, you can see the comments that people have replied to you for, but it deactivates your home feed. If you're doom scrolling, if you're wasting time, stop and install it. I just wanted to say my piece on that.
One last little as a plug really.
So yes, please.
If you go onto my blog, I've got a WhatsApp community, and what I've done is I've harvested all of the like BC blogs, and I put them onto a big feed system, so it kind of
nice.
Whenever anyone in the like BC blogosphere blogs and some like LinkedIn newsletters, not posts, it just posts to a WhatsApp group. So there's a WhatsApp community. It's literally got 2 channels. It's got the blog news. Actually, there's 3 channels. There's the blog news. There's the Microsoft Learn updates, which we had to kind of separate out because they do 100 at once. And then there's one like just general chat channel where people often like we get a lot of beginners in there, asking real basic BC questions, and it's okay. Like any question is fine in there because everyone is on their BC journey somewhere. There'll be people. Someone was asking there today about group VAT. That's a bit more of a technical thing, but we'll have people asking you like, oh, how do I do payment terms? Something really basic that you might learn really early on in your journey. But anything goes. It's fine.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And we'll leave a link to Andy's blog in the description so you can check that out, because that is a really cool feature, and I hope someone's done that for Power Apps, and if they have, then why am I not invited? I would like to get an invite if anyone's listening. But yeah, no, that is awesome, and we'll leave all of the links in the description. Andy will send them to me after the podcast. Andy, I think we left a lot there for people to dig their teeth into from an education perspective. So I'd like to give something to the people who might already be engaged with BC and clicked on this video, and it's in relation to some of the technical things that you've seen with your experience. So people who are just dabbling into BC projects now, what would you say companies make mistakes on before, during, and after BC implementation, starting with before, or wherever you want in that spectrum?
Number one mistake before is probably underestimating the time that it will take to go live.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's lots of possible mistakes, but sort of expecting that you can go live in 6 months or of course the length of the project is determined by the complexity of the business and all the rest of it. So, but I think it's very, very common to go into projects and people have certain expectations on how fast they're going to go live, and then as we get into the project. And it's very common, every company's different and every project's different, right? So this is a very generic thing to say. But it's very common on Business Central projects that we're dealing with SMB companies. They don't normally have like a separate project team. It'll just be the finance people, the ops people, and they've got their regular jobs to do on top of this extra project to get the new system that half of them don't want anyway, right? You've got that whole change curve thing to manage. And you often lose the finance teams have like month end to deal with, or VAT quarters, or year end, where there's suddenly there's this furious activity where they've got to get all the reports together for the wider business for the board meeting that's been in the calendar since the previous year. So yeah, before the project, it's kind of possibly underestimating the time and the allocation that you need to do of your own resources, your own being the people on the user side to the project. That's a common mistake. During the project, probably the biggest mistake is, or certainly one that we try to steer people away from, is kind of like, well, the old system did it this way, so why can't Business Central do it exactly like that?
Right.
I want the button here, and I want the process to work exactly like like what I'm used to. Or can we please? I don't like the word vendors. So please change it to suppliers everywhere in the system. Things like that, where it's like it's always it's down to the consultants to convince, to prove the benefits of you picking up those processes that are baked into Business Central. Because when you adopt the core processes in the first instance, right, then you're going to have a better time down the line, because as Microsoft updates, they obviously maintain that that core business process and they build to it. If you've gone off the beaten path, your process might break. You might need to do more custom development. So those are we always try to be very mindful of and listen to people's wants and needs and their requirements, and we try to steer the conversation around so this is the outcome you want to achieve. Here's the business process that works the smoothest and the most efficient inside Business Central per standard. Does this achieve your outcome? Does this reduce, sometimes go down to the level of the click economy? It's well, it's extra clicks to do this. And I'm but if you start early, the process actually starts over here with your other team member and finishes over there with another separate team member. So the click economy across for the whole business is actually reduced. So that would be my in the middle of projects thing to watch out for. And then after the project's done, I think after the project done, the biggest mistake you can make is to treat Business Central like you might have treated an on-prem deployment of an app, where you plug it in, install it, and then it sits there for 5 years and you're using it, cracking on, right? And you don't really, you go and do other projects. But Business Central SaaS and all of the SaaS solutions, you've got to change your mindset. You've got to understand that there's a release coming, twice a year. There's releases coming, okay? You're not going to have that massive investment 5 years down the line to replace everything, because it's an evergreen solution. It's keeping up to date with all the regulations, and it's keeping on top of all of the features, the company like Microsoft is going to bring to bear. So, obviously, we didn't talk about AI yet, but Microsoft is pushing a lot of AI into Business Central. We've had Copilots where you can chat with them and do small tasks inside Business Central, and we've got a number of agents now where it will one of the agents is sales order agent, so that takes sales. You can just write an email once you set it up, obviously. Please can I purchase this, or have you got any stock of this? And the agent takes care of vast majority of the donkey work. There's another agent to check out, which is the payables agent. And so this is using AI to read those incoming invoices, to understand, to create the document inside the system, to understand, is this a rent that needs to be deferred, the sort of accounting practice type things, and save labour, all those on all those sorts of other matters. So yeah, the post project thing is not to carve out some time for someone in the business, whether it's the IT person or whether it's more on the systems kind of product owner. You need to reserve a little bit of time to understand what updates are coming, and because you can give some great benefits to your team in the company if you look and you take an interest and have a look at the Business Central launch events to see those features. Oh well, that's going to make a difference to my team, and test it properly, and then before you push it into production, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I don't think people test things enough. It always amazes me. Well, it always amazes me. For example, not even from a business perspective, but from a demo perspective, the little consultants and devs test something before they demonstrate it to a customer. And I feel that also resonates when people are even developing. So I guess with testing, what are some of the measures you put in place to make sure, because I always say this, and maybe some CRM people will get mad at me, but I think it's always more dangerous to push an ERP change that doesn't work or break something than a CRM change that doesn't work or break something. And please tell me if you disagrey, but I think that's just different.
Anyone who's pushing anything that hasn't been tested is a danger mode.
Yeah.
I mean, the other ones at the tip of my tongue on your 3 problems thing earlier was data and testing. That's something that's also ignored,
right,
big time on every project. But yeah, so in terms of testing, yes, testing is incredibly important. Getting the end users who are going to use the system to actually get time on the grass in the system, performing that UAT, those test scripts. I've been on projects where they've outsourced it to a separate team, and then the day-to-day users didn't have the exposure. I think we did more actual testing was done, but then when it came to go live, we had more P1s because the people didn't know how to do the most basic of tasks because they'd forgotten from their training. Whereas when you've gone through the ringer on lots of test scripts, it kind of bakes it into your brain, right? Through, or there's scars that you've got it that way.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. The financial go live is the kind of the big, can be considered the big scary bit of an ERP project, but we always would do like a mock go live, a dry run, and then like that's when people really find out, like we've got all these tasks that need to happen in a particular order. The data always needs to reconcile back. There's this. It's very, very strict the way we do this to get that correct data position from out of the old system exactly just so into the new system, so we can start doing business as usual processing, and all the people that we need to pay get paid on time. We correctly understand all the monies that are owed to us, the end user business, and all the rest of it. So that mock go live is usually when there's a little bit, like, they understand how long it takes.
Yeah.
Because ultimately you can't do these things in an instant, and depending on the company, moving those ledgers across, how long can the business stop processing? It's been described as, your car's going down the motorway and we want to change all four wheels without stopping the car. So like, how long can you put the car on the side of the road for to change all the wheels, sort of thing. And for some businesses, it's like, oh, well, we do all of our activity at the end of the month, so you've got the whole month to do it. Other businesses are like, well, the shop will be open at 9 on Saturday. We close the ledgers on Friday. So, like, we need to do it. Are we going to close the shop over the weekend? It's like, what's the impact on the revenue versus, having people work the night shift. Like those are some conversations I've had in the past, and people, they want to, all things get considered, right, on these projects. How are you going to go?
Yeah, very interesting. And again, it's interesting because I tie it back to when you led with soft skills, because without those skills, that listening, that trust, you're not getting those answers. You're not getting the truth from the customer. What can they actually manage?
You've got to get in the trenches with the people. And that's one of the things that I really love about Business Central projects, is because generally speaking, the projects are, an average project team might be like a lead consultant, maybe a junior consultant, like PM, dev, if you've got any bespoke stuff. But that lead consultant role, your run-of-the-mill Business Central project, as a single person, you can hold the whole project in your mind, and you can build those relationships with the people on the other side, and solve all their problems, like the simple ones, and then I'll get back to you on the difficult ones and speak to the you become their knight in shining armor, hopefully. Right?
Yeah.
And you build up, whenever you can, you build up that goodwill, because there will always be bumps in the road, and when you get to those bumps in the road, and you've said it earlier, trust. So you've solved various different issues for these people. They begin to trust you. They do trust you. And then when you get to the bump in the road, it's like, oh, crikey, that's a big bump. How are you going to solve this one, Andy? It's like, actually, I don't know right now, but, I'm pretty sure I can figure it out. Or we'll make a plan and we'll come back to you. And because you've built that trust, they don't, their hair doesn't necessarily catch on fire at that moment, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you can get into these conversations with customers where, for example, you're approaching a deadline and you can start to they're pinging you a little bit more, or maybe they have a different tone when you're calling them because they want it delivered on time. But I think if you have that foundation built, it makes it much easier. You're not getting micromanaged or anything like that, right? And that's in comparison to someone who doesn't trust you, which makes your job harder in turn as a consultant. So I'm always advocating for people to be confident in themselves, and then that will transmit to the customer as well in the work that you're doing. So that's why I always encourage small things like content creation, just showing your work, learning in public, willing to look stupid. I think these things are so important.
Yeah.
So then when
you've
please.
Honest, when you don't know the answer to a question, it's a case of no, I don't know that one. I've written it down, and we'll get back to you.
Agreed.
You don't have to. You should never. Feel bad about not knowing everything about the solution you work on. Nobody can know everything. It's impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. And Andy, you also tied into something when you were speaking there, and we haven't spoken about it yet. We're going to talk about it because this is a podcast and it's a tech podcast. So we're going to talk about the future of Business Central and AI. Oh, very, very interesting topic. So again, a noob from Business Central. What are you seeing? What's sparking your attention, and what's fluff, Andy? Let's put it in two separate categories.
Yeah. I think the agents that we've got in Business Central now are just the beginning, very much so just the beginning. I've seen a little bit of the framework behind those, how they got created, and actually, that's soon going to be, I think that's going to be available at some point for people to start to create their own agents. And, I think the world, there's a lot of scope there with what you could potentially achieve, and I think Microsoft are, once they make that available to, I think it's going to be made available to partners initially to create their own sort of agents to sell as like add-ons. I think you're going to start to see some more. You're going to start to see a lot of those. They've picked out a couple of good ones to show the process with. I think in all these things, it's going to be super important to show return on investment because they want to. It's another revenue stream for Microsoft, right? So you've got an agent that's going to do a bunch of tasks that you otherwise would be paying a member of staff to do. So that's that. You've got to you want to be able to understand the return on investment. But I think there's no like going backwards on this sort of the AI age, right?
No.
The other elements inside Business Central are the co-pilots. So that's where you kind of open up there's a button and you've got a little chat prompt. And for example, the list, something super simple, right? The list pages in Business Central, you can do analysis mode. And in like Azure, in certain tables in Azure, you've got that like get a pivot table view of it. Mm-hmm. They've got very similar functionality in Business Central. And like not everyone's a super expert on pivot tables, so you've got like columns and rows and values and all this kind of stuff. Like how do I do a pivot table? How do I want to pivot? I want to see this. I want to see my customers grouped by X, Y, Z. So with the Copilot, you just type it in natural language, and it will then configure the analysis mode page for you. So yeah, awesome. There's another example of the AI tools in there. Some of the, in terms of the fluff side of it, I think it all comes down to what you need as a business. So you might see the marketing information Copilot. So there's a Copilot that will create marketing information for your products. So if you've loaded in items, so your product catalog, if you've loaded in attributes like color, size, style, blah blah blah, you name it, there's kind of an extendable system where you can put in as many different attributes as you like. You can have a Copilot that writes the marketing text, and it can pull in different attributes, and it can sort of say like, oh, the Samsung telly, it's the stylish black, blah blah blah, this is the size of the telly, and it can do, so if you're a company that needs that, you're like, oh, that's pretty handy, it saved me a load of time doing it. If you're a company that doesn't have that, you might see it like, well, that's a bit of a fluff, I can't imagine us ever using that. So I think at the end, is there any, the chat with Copilot is an absolute belter. That one, everyone can use it, especially if you're new in Business Central. There we go. Another useful thing for if you're learning BC. So like this, the straightforward chat with Copilot just opens up a Copilot side pane, but it's kind of connected to Business Central, and it's also connected to the Business Central Learn Docs. So if you ask a Business Central question on that one, it takes you to the right page in the documentation. And in fact, every single caption inside Business Central has like got if you hover over it, it says explain with Copilot, and it kind of like opens up the side pane and writes the question in for you, and then it will like direct you, it'll explain the process and take through to the documentation. So I think so in short, it's the AI stuff they've only just got started on it, and the tooling to make the agents, once we start to see more of that, it's actually incredibly simple how they've the background of these things, but through natural language and a couple of other elements, it's creating all of these capabilities. So I think we're just it is just the tip of the iceberg, and I think once Microsoft allow that massive ecosystem of ISVs, right? There's some huge companies out there that are producing these add-ons for Business Central. Once these guys get their hands on the creative like tools, if you like, for the agents inside Business Central, I think we're going to start to see more and more. And they'll be focused on their industry area of expertise, right? So there'll be agents in this industry or agents in that industry, and then you can go and get the right agent for you, and it will make I guess I don't spend a huge amount of time looking at like the competitive solutions out there, but not aware of the some of the other SaaS ERP systems have got agents in them. So I think Microsoft is like mega ahead of the curve on this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like something that we all learned at the MVP Summit, and they were very honest about Microsoft. It was a sense of, I feel like Microsoft were always a step behind. Like even with when everything went to cloud and then that came under Satya Nadella, Salesforce kind of done it first. And they were always kind of second place. And I feel like with this Copilot surge, you can kind of tell because it's kind of like the new kid on the block with all the new toys, right? You know, they signed this big deal with Open AI, and they kind of just threw Copilot into everything, and they had much more of an ability to fail just because, for example, like no one uses Bing. Like, have you heard the statistic of like have you heard the statistic of like 98% of Bing searchers are like to search for Google Chrome? Yeah, it's actually quite sad. But like, you know, they could just throw Copilot in there, but Google had to be
Yeah.
much more careful with Gemini, and they had a very
Yes, that's right. I've
easy.
heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a very easy license to experiment, and I feel like we're seeing that with the ERP systems and even the CRM
Because it was like
systems.
Copilot chat was Bing chat for a little bit, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. It was. Yeah, it was interesting. It was an interesting time to be a
I
Bing
mean, the
user.
only one
For
thing I'm slightly grumpy about is like my M365 home screen is now just a big chat with Copilot. Like, at least bring back the little waffle so you can get
yeah,
it's like oh man, like why did they do
yeah,
that?
that is a bit frustrating. That was definitely a Satya
Or the
Nadella
search box, like
decision. Yeah,
you can just search like I was trying to get to like MS Forms on my
yeah.
tenancy account, and it's like I've got to like Google Forms and then sign in that way.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating. I mean, like I saw that. Like now, when you go on, you know, the M365 site, it's all just a big Copilot, isn't it? There's not really much to navigate on. I guess you know the UI for AI was real.
Yeah, I mean,
Unfortunately.
it's like it's change, right? Change management, right? Everyone,
Yeah.
nobody likes change.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But when it's making things less efficient, then I feel like we have a right to complain. But yeah, I mean, Andy, I love everything you said about AI and kind of the direction it's moving in. Last question before we wrap up here. But what advice would you give organizations who see these AI tools popping up in Business Central? Because I don't even know if it's a choice anymore. Maybe it is a toggle. I know
Yeah,
some of them
no.
are in CRM. Like, what advice
So
would you give? What advice would you give these businesses who are like, oh, like, you know, they want to jump into the AI thing, but you know, maybe they're going at it too soon? Like, what advice would you give them? How would they prepare themselves? Do they just get in and use it? Do they have to do something first?
yeah, great question. I think so. Number one, yes, there is a Copilot features page in Business Central where you can toggle things on and off. So like, be sure to turn it off until you're ready to start using it. I think have a look around. Search out Chris Huntingford, Cloud Lighthouse, all of the AI responsibility stuff that those guys are doing. It's so important to understand the impact of using whatever AI tool it might be. It's super duper important to understand. How are you going to use this new tool set in a responsible way? And once you've got an understanding like around the data that's going to be used in it, what's its intended outcome, all of these kind of like responsibility safety factors, and at the same time, go and check out what Business Central, go and check out the features that are available in Business Central. Spin up a test environment with non customer data, non real data, to understand can these tools make a difference in your business, and so that you can categorize the relevance to your business, and you can categorize any potential risks of using it. And when I say risks, I mean like in your wider business scope, because of course within Business Central, Azure, and all of inside the Microsoft Cloud, there's a huge amount of control that allows you to like use these AI tools safely. So it's more a case of, I mean, I think there's some good stuff. There's some good podcasts out there with Chris talking to the crew there about what you need to consider before you just go jumping in feet first into an AI solution. And there's some great examples out there of not Business Central, but big companies where they put like AI chatbots on their public facing web pages. I think like one of the American airlines did it, and it kind of was giving away like discounts and credits and all that kind of stuff. So mistakes have been made. Learn, go and have a look at these, learn the lessons, understand in your jurisdiction, if you're in Europe versus if you're in the US, if you're in different countries, there's different kind of rules and laws and regulations around processing, by GDPR, you've got this concept of a data processor. So when you're using AI to make a decision for your business, there's similar kind of rules coming down the way, and you don't want to get caught unawares by those. So my advice is to go understand the features inside Business Central, understand your what is it you want to achieve, and can AI help you achieve your business objectives in a responsible way? And check out Chris Huntingford. Check out Areti Ilez. She's got some really. She's done a couple of. She's got a series of talks she's done on AI policy, responsible AI, really good. Cloud Lighthouse is another good one to go and check out. There's a wealth of resources out there. You can, and there's tons of stuff you can just grab from these guys, made freely available. Before you want to sort of engage with them, right? So there's no excuse not to kind of do the basics. Do your homework, as Donna always says, like go understand AI responsibility around AI. That's your homework.
Absolutely, and so important. And I think it's a topic that doesn't get discussed often enough, and definitely the Cloud Lighthouse guys are trying to bring some more light to that. And Areti, I had her on the podcast, amazing person, and brilliant. She gives really good presentations. And it gives really good presentations. So if you ever catch her at an event, I highly recommend attending one of her talks too. And then of course Chris Huntingford needs no introduction for anyone listening. But the legend, the man, the myth, the legend. But also been a guest on this podcast. But Andy, this has been amazing. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure the people at home have learned a lot. So thank you so much for coming on. I always like to leave the end segment, roll out the red carpet. I like for you to let the people know what you're up to, where they can find you. And of course, the floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you very much. If you're interested in Business Central, check out my blog. I've had a little bit of a holiday from blogging. I need to get back into it. But yes, it's blog.wingate365.com. There's some resources on there if you're in the end user world and you want to jump across to the partner channel. I did a kind of a blog series on that because that's my journey. So check out, there's lots of resources about learning and all that kind of good stuff in there. There's the WhatsApp community. You can join the BC. I've got a BC WhatsApp community in there. And as I explained earlier, it's just kind of it's a lot of RSS feeds for just purely BC blogs. So all the sort of the BC MVPs and all the BC community people that put out regular great content. You just comes through. You can avoid the doom scrolling because it's just a WhatsApp.
Love it.
There's no chatting. It's just the links to the WhatsApp stuff.
I really like that.
Yeah, and if you're a business out there that's wants to find out a little bit more about Business Central, or you're thinking about implementing it, then give me a shout. I work for Venture Systems Group. I run the Business Central practice there, and so it's always good to hear from real businesses with real business problems that we can help you solve with tools like Business Central.
Amazing. Thank you very much for that, Andy. And all of the links will be in the description, so if you want to check any of those out, please do. And Andy didn't give you a license to bug him on LinkedIn, but I'm sure he'd be open to questions if you have them.
Of course,
yeah, that's where I found you. So just a shameless plug for people to go on and obviously message you if they have any questions, and of course you'll reply at your own discretion. But Andy, I haven't done an ERP session with anyone. It's all been AI and Power Platform generally, or Power. Yeah, so it's been amazing to have you on. I've learned so much, and I will let you go and enjoy your evening. And to those of you at home, thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Andy.
Thanks so much for having me on. Cheers.
Take it easy. Bye bye.